Joining us now, one-time mayor of Boston and former ambassador to the Holy See, Ray Flynn, along with our old friend, WRKO talk show host and Boston Herald columnist Howie Carr. Gentlemen, we thank you both for joining us here on America's Forum. Ambassador Flynn, to you first. Sure. What do you make of the UN's claims about abortion in the church?
Well, it's like a three-ring circus. I think it's like the Houdini magic show act. Here you see it, here you don't. You know, they haven't really done a very effective job, the UN, over the years, dealing with some of the atrocities from genocide to Bosnia-Herzegovina to Rwanda and to persecution of Christians throughout the Middle East, even right up into the present time of the kidnapping of children for sexual exploitation. So the UN doesn't really have much of a record to stand on, and that's what they were founded on, is to establish peace throughout the world and be the United Nations of communities coming together to bring about peaceful solutions to systemic problems. They haven't done that, so I think they're wandering into areas where they can make political hay with much of the liberal media and reaching out on these different social issues, liberal social issues, that get them headlines, but they really don't accomplish very much.
Howie Carr, you and I talk about politics. Of course, Ambassador Flynn and I have quote-unquote lived politics in elective office, and of course the ambassador as a diplomat as well. But I can recall actually getting an amendment passed on appropriations concerning U.S. dues to the United Nations. At least I got it through the House of Representatives, suggesting we cut back funding of the UN, primarily because of what I call human rights abuses, having nations like Iran and Cuba heading up the different committees and tribunals on human rights. Smack to me of just, well, beyond hypocrisy to absurdity. The political dimension and the consequences that might exist for the UN in terms of American policy and certainly internationally with what is seen as an attack on the Holy See.
Well, JD, you know, look at Ray's right. I mean, look at what's happened to these peacekeeping forces, so-called, that the UN has sent into various parts of the world, mostly Africa. I mean, the forces of the UN have raped thousands upon thousands of women. They've run totally out of control. I mean, the governments, the feeble governments that the UN is supposed to be protecting, have asked them to leave. Their treatment of the local populations has been so brutal. And you know, the Vatican ambassador last week, when he was trying to answer these charges, he was pointing out a number of I thought very germane statistics. In Canada, for instance, 622 aborted fetuses born alive after failed abortions left to die. This is in the last 10 years. I mean, is that torture? I would say it is. In 2005, 66 babies just in the United Kingdom. I mean, Kermit Gosnell, that monster physician in Philadelphia, was he torturing people? How about the Taliban in Afghanistan before they were overthrown? They were killing gays. Killing adulterers, Iran's killing adulterers. I mean, aren't there other things that the UN could be concerned with other than Catholic theology? What about Sharia law? Is that torturing anybody? When is the UN going to have a task force on Sharia law?
And this leads me to my next question for Ambassador Flynn. Ambassador Flynn, you have been a part of the diplomatic corps as our ambassador to the Holy See. Do you expect now the UN just to be involved virtually exclusively in anti-Christian, anti-Catholic pronouncements on human rights when it comes to the Church's teachings?
Well, JD, you've experienced this, and Howie has as well, and he's written about it very well. There's a select group of people, elitists, ideologues, that are really dominating the political environment, not only in the United States, but also in the world. And I saw that personally at the United Nations. I went to the United Nations with John Paul II. I couldn't believe my eyes, the disrespect that they had for the Catholic faith, for Christians in general. And here is the voice of arguably one of the most moral, if not the most moral, voice in the world. And these people were very casual about what he was saying. And this was right before the Cairo conference, the United Nations Cairo conference and Beijing conference. And the disregard for the people of faith, it's amazing to me. I think we grew up in an environment, J.D., when we had respect for freedom of religion, freedom of the press. Those were our basic liberties and freedoms that we were grown up with. And now we're seeing the United Nations, an institution established, funded by many dollars of American people, and going off in this radical direction that really doesn't serve the common good at all. I don't even need, I'll go out on a limb right now and say this, Congressman. I don't even know why you need the United Nations anymore. I think they've outlived their usefulness. I think they've become ineffective, and I think it's time to move on. It just doesn't work.
Wow, now this has set up a situation where I think, I don't want to speak for Howie, but I think, like we used to say in the House, Ambassador, we might have unanimous consent on that in terms of the role of the United Nations. Let me switch topics. We've got a little more than 3 minutes remaining. There has been a lot of reaction to the call by Pope Francis for redistribution of wealth. You've seen a backlash. First of all, Ambassador, what do you think the Holy Father was saying? And then Howie, will go to you for some remarks. But Ambassador Flynn, you first on what the Pope had to say about the redistribution of wealth.
Well, I just came back from Rome. I was there for about a week and a half. And I didn't interpret his comments in that light. I just read Jonathan Morris, who's a very astute theologian in Rome. And what he's saying is that we should have a policy that helps people who need help, equity, the old Catholic social teaching. We all know that. That's why we contribute to various causes in the Catholic Church. My mother was a cleaning woman, but she always had $5 to put in the St. Francis de Paul poor box every Sunday, and she didn't have very much money. But that's the way we grew up. And I think that's what Pope Francis was really talking about. I don't think it's some kind of a policy, a socialist policy of you tap into everybody's resources and they're assessed a certain amount of money that they have to give to a certain cause. I didn't see that at all with Francis's comments. I think it's more about equity, and it's about helping those who can't help themselves.
Howie, your take, sir?
Well, I think the Pope is astute enough to know that if you have a major concentration of power in the state, which is what you would need to have any sort of serious quote unquote redistribution policies, that's going to mean less freedom for everybody, whether it's freedom of speech, religion, assembly, all the freedoms we cherish under the First Amendment. I'm not too concerned about his statements at all.
Okay, about a minute and a half remains. Let me go to something else that happened in the virtual backyard of you gentlemen, or it's about to happen. A black mass at Harvard University. The cultural studies group bringing in the New York-based Satanic Temple, an on-campus black mass. Ambassador Flynn, your take on what is about to transpire at Harvard?
Well, don't forget, it is Harvard, don't forget, so we have to remember that. I'm going to be over there, but not for the support the mass. I'm going to be over there to join a prayer group that is going to be outside Memorial Hall tonight. I think it's absurd. I think it does disfavor to those people who attended Harvard, the many good alumni. I don't think they deserve this. I wouldn't have any part of them. I would not give them the license to do this. It's un-American. It conflicts with our values, and I don't have room for it. And I'll be outside the gates protesting them tonight myself. I'm not looking for attention, but I'm just making sure that my faith is represented.
Protest via prayer. Ambassador Ray Flynn, we appreciate it. Howie Carr, we will have you back later in this program. Sure. And of course, Ambassador Flynn, you have a standing invitation to come back and visit us here on America's Forum. A very enlightening discussion,
gentlemen. Harvard was founded to educate ministers. They've really lost their way. They've lost their soul.
A valid point, Howie, indeed. Thanks very much. So we're going to ask you, freedom of religion, The UN piling on the Holy See, and meantime, a satanic mass at Harvard? Why don't you tweet in your comments at Newsmax TV, hashtag America's Forum. We're coming right back.
What you don't know about Pope Francis will shock you. Bestseller, Francis, A Pope for Our Time, tells the real story. Newsmax says Francis, A Pope for Our Time rips off the shroud of mystery about this man. Now Newsmax has a special offer for Francis, A Pope for Our Time. Get it for just $9.95 and save $12 off the cover price. Plus, we'll send you a free one-year subscription to Newsmax magazine. That's a $40 value for free. Order now at popesagenda.com.
What if I told you that you could reverse diabetes and stop taking your diabetes medication? If you or someone you care about has diabetes or pre-diabetes, there's a special free video from Barton Publishing you need to watch. You may have heard about this. It's all over the internet. People who have followed this plan say they have not only normalized their blood sugar, but have, with their doctor's approval, stopped taking their diabetes meds completely. This is a natural, drug-free approach to reversing diabetes, with remarkable results in as little as 4 weeks. This natural remedy will save you from being a slave to doctor-prescribed drugs. This free video gives you 3 specific actions to get your blood sugar under control. And the best part is the main ingredient is a common spice found in most kitchens. Watch the free video for yourself at 22diabetesvideo.com. Watch for free at 22diabetesvideo.com. Get back the quality of your life and free yourself from diabetes medication. Go to 22diabetesvideo.com.
Attention seniors and baby boomers. A new website has been created just for you. MyBenefits811.com. At MyBenefits811.com, we reveal a weird trick that could help you add $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. For example, did you know how you file for Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect? One simple step could add up to $1,000 to your monthly payouts. And other strategies we found reveal 33 ways for big savings on your health care. At MyBenefits811.com, you will also discover how you could save up to 50% on your groceries, along with 49 other ways to save as much as $50,000 starting today. Newsmax says MyBenefits811.com is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to MyBenefits811.com now to find out how you could add extra money to your Social Security checks. That's MyBenefits811.com, MyBenefits811.com.
In 2014, half of your friends, family, and neighbors may lose their jobs, all while you're robbed of 90% of your life savings, investments, and home's value. Controversial economist Robert Wiedemer, who was the only expert to predict the recession, has released a startling video with shocking evidence that the powers that be have tried to ban. But that hasn't stopped 50 million people from getting the truth. Watch it at aftbook.com. That's aftbook.com.
We're back on America's Forum, where news has already been made today, John Bachman. I mean to have Ambassador Raymond Flynn, the former mayor of Boston, publicly questioned. It sounded to my ear like he was saying, time for the U.S. to get out of the United Nations.
Well, he wouldn't be the first to say that. It'd be interesting to see how that would happen, considering the UN is located in Manhattan. But we can talk more about that after this Newsmax Now update. Well, Democrats once again are huddling behind closed doors today, still trying to decide if they're going to participate or boycott the House Select Committee assigned to investigate the 2012 attacks on the U.S. diplomatic mission in Benghazi, Libya. Friday, Democrats could not reach a decision, and it's unclear how the party will proceed. As soon as we have more information about what Democrats are going to do, we'll bring it to you. And even if they do participate, though, many say the results of the investigation by the committee will be viewed as political and partisan, whether or not Democrats participate. Now, the NFL has its first openly gay player, but what's going to happen next? Former Missouri Tiger Michael Sam was drafted late in the 7th round by the St. Louis Rams. Sam's draft day on-camera kiss has also created quite a bit of controversy already, but the Rams general manager says he's only receiving support for the pick.
You know, what's interesting on that is probably we've gotten, obviously, more text after, you know, a 7th round pick than I've probably ever gotten. Some of them from our players, a lot of them from people I know, there's not 1 ounce, there's not even close to a negative.
Well, there you have it. Sam still needs to make it through training camp before he makes the regular season roster, so it's not a done deal quite yet. Now, stick around. We'll have Ed Berliner join us in just a few moments for a closer look at the Sam pick and, more importantly, the reaction that kiss has stirred in the sports world. The unidentified remains of those killed at the World Trade Center returned to the World Trade Center site in a solemn procession this weekend. Now, the remains were moved from the office of the chief medical examiner on Manhattan's east side. They will be transferred into an underground repository in the same building as the National September 11th Memorial Museum. The group of victims' family members, who say the remains should have been stored in an above-ground monument separate from the museum, protested the procession. About a dozen wore black bands over their mouths at the site. Other family members support the plans, which have been in the works for years. The death toll from the attacks at the World Trade Center stands at 2,753. 41% of those have not been positively identified. And a little bit better news in Washington today. The monument is back open for tours after nearly 3 years of repairs. With more than 150 cracks repaired in the marble, the Washington Monument has reopened its doors to the public for the first time since that 2011 earthquake, which caused the widespread damage. The monument was built 130 years ago, honoring our first president, George Washington, and now the exhibits have been installed at the top, and visitors can again ride an elevator to look out from the highest point in our nation's capital. And it's great to see that, JD, without the scaffolding that's been around the Washington Monument. Such an important symbol, so much symbolism with that building right there. And you can see the view right here on the video down the mall straight to the Capitol. And it's always interesting when you go to Washington, D.C. to see how the different buildings and the landmarks are laid out in that city.
Well, of course, Pierre L'Enfant, the French architect involved in the city planning of what so many called the federal city when it was first put in place. Washington, D.C. and the Washington Monument, as I was looking at that video, I reflected on my first visit there as an 8th grader. And what I thought was fascinating, I took the elevator up, but then they used to have the staircase open, and the number of memorials from the different states and the different civic clubs and organizations, American history there via inscription, really, as you go down those steps. I think they've since eliminated the ability to go up and down the steps. I don't, maybe in refortifying it, I would have hoped they could have looked to keep those steps open. But I also think about something, John, that in the rough and tumble of Washington politics has been called the Washington Monument Strategy. Goes something like this. I went through it about 19 years ago as a new Republican member of Congress when we started taking a look at cutting spending. And we actually were able to impound some expenditures that had already been appropriated and already been signed off on by then President Clinton. We were taking out a sharp pencil because we wanted to balance the budget. And we said, no, look, we're going to look at everything. And no sooner did we say that than suddenly newspapers around the country meant, well, that just means our national parks are going to be closed. That just means the end of the Park Service as we know it. And that had actually started some years earlier when there was a dispute about the National Park Service. And the superintendent at the time said, well, Congress can take this step, but of course it probably means we have to close the Washington Monument. And of course it drew headlines from sympathetic journalists, partisan in their own right, when the fact is that money is fungible. You don't have to close up America's monuments and great natural setting. But what has happened in Washington so often is that there is this adherence to what unions need, to what bureaucrats need, and whether it's Interior, the Park Service, any realm of government, I'd like to see the premium placed on the American citizens, not the burgeoning Washington bureaucracy.
Oh yeah, we see it time and time again. Anytime there's talk of a government shutdown or any kind of cutbacks, this happens at the federal level and all the way down at the municipal level. Certain politicians try to make sure those cuts hurt the most advantageous way, I guess, to benefit their political needs.
Cities say it's going to be cops, it's going to be fire service. Folks, let me tell you something. Be highly skeptical. Stay involved. That's what's vitally
Exactly.
important.
And get out and see our great monuments in Washington, D.C. if you get a chance. Always great to see them. Important that we have those in this country. We'll be back here on America's Forum. Of course, we have an opportunity for you to weigh in here on the program as well. You can reach out to us on social media. Find us on Twitter at NewsmaxTV. The hashtag for that is America's Forum. Connect at NewsmaxTV.com is email address. And Facebook, facebook.com/NewsmaxTV.